Welcome everyone. I'm so glad you're here. Yes, nice turnout this evening. Even though we have rain, we still have a great turnout. Wonderful. My name is Neil Vandry and I'll be your officiator tonight. It's great to see you all. Thanks for braving the weather, and many of you came from a long distance. How many are here for the very first time tonight? See, for your show of hands, wow, we've got about 10, 12, 13, 14 people here for the first time. And I know we still have people coming up the stairs. How did you hear about this Perpetual Life? You heard from him. You brought a friend. Maybe you saw it on the YouTube. Yes. How many people received a phone call about the service tonight? Or you received a text? You got an email? You know, if you've come and you've given us your email, thank you for that. We're going to stay in touch with you and let you know about future events. And I'd like to also welcome everyone who's joining the live stream, as we are live streaming here all over the world. We have people, sometimes as many as 60 people are joining our live streams here. And we're so glad that they're putting on watch parties all over the country, all over the world. People are having watch parties, and we want to encourage more of that. So if anyone online wants to have their own watch party in their town, get in touch with us and we'll help you to formulate that. Contact us, we'll help you with that. Here at Perpetual Life, we refer to ourselves as immortalists. Not because we have defeated death at this moment, but because we have faith in the future of humanity to find ways of reversing aging, defeating death, making death optional. Well, and we see that technology may not be here at this time, but we see it in the laboratories. We see the research going on in laboratories around the world where they have reversed aging in laboratory animals, where they've done some amazing things. And we see that going down the line to us, and hopefully in the very near future. Our mission here is to assist everyone in ways to find radical life extension. We follow the prophets Arthur C. Clarke and Fedorov. Arthur C. Clarke, who said he had revolutionary ideas which seemed to invoke 3 stages of reactions. They may be summed up in the phrases, number 1, it's completely impossible. Or number 2, it's possible, but it's not worth doing. And later on, they decide, I said it was a good idea all along. And you know, we see that happening with people. So many people don't understand that life extension, that there's the possibility right now to reverse the process of aging. That's available right now, and there are many ways of doing that. Next month, February 28th, we have Brian Delaney coming from the Rescue Elder Society. It's now called something else. It's Age Reversal Network, right? Age Reversal Network. So Brian's going to be speaking next month. And that's the 4th Thursday of February at 7 o'clock. We'll be back here for that presentation by Brian. We are so looking forward to that. We are a science-based transhumanist church. So our faith is in humanity to find ways toward unlimited lifespans. All right, I want to point out that we do have a lending library on this level in the back. If you'd like to borrow a book, that's there for you. Find a book that you'd like to borrow, bring it back next month, and find another one. There's a lot of great reading material over there. We're going to get right into our program because we have 2 great presentations. After the first presentation, Bill Faloon will be giving his age reversal update. So we're looking forward to that as well. But let me tell you about our speaker tonight and a little bit about growth differential factor 11, GDF11. It's a naturally occurring peptide that has been cited in several papers as having an amazing capacity to restore aging in muscles, hearts, and brains in mice. It has never been tested in humans until Steve Perry became patient 0 in 2014. Steve's path to GDF11 research started at the University of Pennsylvania with a degree in computer sciences in 1980, and since then, Steve has founded and sold several software tech companies. After 40 years of tech software development, Steve believes that all complex systems are highly programmed. If not, they fall to chaos quickly. And the ultimate complex system, the human body, is a highly programmed, and aging is no exception. Steve believes that lifespan is programmed by group selection based on resource and environmental selection pressures. Parabiosis strongly suggests that blood-borne peptide, especially GDF11, are a key component of the aging program. And Steve founded GDF11 Rejuvenation Inc. in June 2014 to explore the efficacy of GDF11 supplementation. So please help me give a warm Hollywood, Florida welcome to Steve Perry. Come on up, Steve.
Thanks, Neil. Okay. Anyway, as Neil said, I'm patient 0 on GDF11. The first guy that ever tried it. There's only going to be one first person, so I've already got my place sealed in history. Anyway, there's the GDF11 molecule up there. It's a big molecule. It's one of the largest signaling molecules in the human body. 45,000 Daltons. It's 9 times the size of insulin, and it's 2.5 times the size of growth hormone. So if you want to do GDF11, you need one of these. I brought enough needles for everybody. I'm only kidding. Anyway, but people always say, why isn't GDF11 in a pill? I've heard that question so many times. I said, why isn't insulin in a pill? And, if someone could figure out an insulin pill, that's like $100 billion play. So as soon as that's done, then we'll get GDF11 in a pill. But anyway, I just want you guys to know, I'm not a MD, and I'm not a molecular biologist. My background is computer science. As Neil was saying, I've had a few software companies, database, payroll, and it's really come in handy because really this project has been about crunching a ton of data, a ton of biomarker data. I have over 100 people that have helped me out. Actually, it's probably 200 or 300 people on GDF11, but 100 that actually do the spreadsheets and enter the data to the software and everything. So my computer science background has been quite helpful. Okay, let's see this thing. Anyway, since this is my talk, I get to editorialize a little bit. Some of you may disagree with this, but I say most of aging is caused by the atrophy of our stem cell populations. I think I've got a lot of data to back this up. Shrinking stem cell populations mean declining repair of key systems, which eventually leads to our death. And I don't believe it's random. There's no difference in DNA pretty much between you and a cat and a rat and a bowhead whale. But a bowhead whale will live 200 years, and a cat will live 15 if you're lucky. So it's programmed by natural selection. I think it's programmed by availability of resources. I hate to say this is the church of perpetual life, but if you're a pure evolutionist, and I am a pure evolutionist, death is good for the species. You can't eat your children's food. You got to leave enough food for your kids, right? You can't consume all the resources for the next generation. And this is programmed by natural selection. So if a species has a lot of food, like the bowhead whale, they have an infinite amount of food, and they have a stable environment, they have no predation. Maybe an orca comes along and eats one of them once in a while, but that's pretty rare. You can evolve very long lifespan. Anyway, GDF11 is endogenous. You're going to hear me say that word a lot. Everybody in the room has GDF11 in them right now. If you don't have GDF11 in you, you're not going to make the next church attendance. It's extremely important. So I like endogenous stuff. I think aging can be cured by purely endogenous peptides. Any system that relies on stem cells for repair is positively impacted by GDF11. And that's most of the systems in the body, not all. Our knock it out of the park biomarkers, what we're famous for, are cardiac, neural. In fact, the reaction time you'll see, there's nothing on the planet that can improve reaction time like GDF11. And muscle, skin, and immune improvements. So it's a pretty good start. So why GDF11? Okay, since high school, which for me was a long time ago, in the 70s, I've always been fascinated by parabiosis. You take an old mouse and a young mouse, you join them together, the old mouse becomes young. You see greater blood flow, vascularization, increased neurogenesis, improved sense of smell, muscle rejuvenation. What they don't tell you in the parabiosis papers is that about half the time the young mouse bites the head off the old mouse. Anyway, I think that's pretty funny. But anyway, yeah. They never mentioned that in the papers. I don't know why, but the young mouse obviously does not like the deal. And then the old mouse is sapping all his energy, so he says, "Well, screw this. I'm going to take care of it with a little beheading action." But anyway, that's something you'll never read in a parabiosis paper. But I know people that do parabiosis research, and they tell me that's a big problem. So anyway, they're mice. My cats behead mice all the time, so I'm not getting too upset about it. Okay, anyway, why GDF11? Okay, there's over 100,000 substances in the blood, so I think it's a safe bet to say that young blood rejuvenates. I think that's where I've placed my bets. But the problem is there's over 100,000 substances in the blood. So okay, yeah, young blood rejuvenates, big deal. What the hell is it? You got a lot to look at. Isolating these substances is the ultimate needle in a haystack exercise. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Fortunately, we live in amazing times. It's just unbelievable the stuff people accomplish that 10 years ago couldn't be done, and this is one of them. The Harvard Stem Cell Institute, they have these rapid screening. They took the old mouse blood and the young mouse blood, and they screened for all these substances. Rapid screening, they could probably screen 10,000 substances a week or whatever, and they said GDF11 is the main ingredient, the main what's causing the de-aging of the mice. And I don't know if you can bet on this, but I would say Amy Wagers and the Harvard Stem Cell Institute group will win a Nobel Prize for this in 10 years. And it's incredible work. It's unbelievable what they did, and I have the ultimate respect for them. Hopefully we'll meet them someday. We're coming at it from different angles, but eventually our paths will cross. GDF11 is most likely the most important blood-borne substance that controls aging, but it's not the only one. And you can just use common evolutionary sense. If it was the only thing that controlled aging, we'd have an outlier. Hopefully that'd be me. It has a mutation on chromosome 11 that kept producing high GDF11 levels, and you'd live 300, 400, maybe you'd be immortal. But that hasn't happened. I believe it's a cocktail of peptides. It's GDF11. I think it's the majority of it. Growth hormone, with TET2. There's another one. What's MAN that just came out, MAN-L or something like that. But I'd say the majority of it is GDF11. But it's not the only thing. And I'm a hardcore GDF11 guy, and I could admit that. Okay. Okay, how does GDF11 work? Very interesting. Basically, it works on your stem cells, and you have very few stem cells in your body. Stem cells incur considerable DNA damage in replication. One hematopoietic stem cell, just the hematopoietic stem cells make all your blood. They'll have 90,000 progeny in one day. So they're basically producing more than one, well, they're precursors, blood cell per second. And to speak in molecular biology terms, the insult to the DNA of the stem cell is pretty big, and eventually the stem cell gets too DNA damaged and it senesces. It probably, and I figured this out just from my data, I think you get 5 to 10 years worth of senescent stem cells, because I can take you back 5, 10 years. That's about it. After that, they die. Actually, that woman, Heydrich, I can't remember her last name. She's from Amsterdam, and she lived to be 115. She only had 2 hematopoietic cells left when she died. It's amazing you could survive with just 2. You start with 20,000, by the way. Can you believe all your blood is made by 20,000 hematopoietic cells? These are just some of the fascinating things you learn. How many cells are there in the body? What's the latest? I think 37 trillion. So all your blood cells are made just like a handful of hematopoietic stem cells. Anyway, GDF11 repairs the DNA damage and restores function to the stem cells. And this is really interesting. You look at this graph, this very famous graph from the Harvard Stem Cell Institute paper, and you can see the green is no DNA damage, and these are muscle stem cells. No DNA damage. Yellow is some. Red is senescent. Red, green good. Yellow not so good. Red really bad. And you can see if you give GDF11 to a young mouse, nothing. It looks the same. And it's interesting because I read this paper 5 years ago. I said, oh, that's interesting. Now, I've had so many people take GDF11. I've had 20 and 30 somethings take GDF11, and they all say the same thing. They go, "What's the big deal, dude?" Yeah, I don't feel anything. And if you look at these graphs, you can see why. But if you deal with an old goat like me, you can see the third graph from the left is a lot of DNA damage, a lot of senescent cells. Throw some GDF11 in the mix, and looking almost as good as the young mouse. So basically, I like to work with people that are 50 and over, because the young guys, they don't effuse properly. And actually, if a millennial was really forward thinking, they would take it. They would take very small amounts, and then when they're 40, they probably have biomarkers of a 30-year-old or whatever. But most millennials are too busy having a good time to think about anti-aging, right? I mean, it takes a real precocious person to take GDF11 at 25. Anyway, another mechanism of action of GDF11 is it upregulates SMAD2, which removes senescent cells. So GDF11 is a senolytic. I know everybody's into senolytics. It has to do this because it's about stem cell repair and cell proliferation. If there wasn't something on the other end balancing it out, you'd run into serious trouble. So why did I decide to do this? Well, obviously I'm half out of my mind. Yeah, I figured that already. But now I'm looking good. 5 years ago, people were like, you got to be kidding me. But anyway, GDF11 mimics parabiosis, which I've always been a fan of. It's shown to improve 3 key systems, cardiac, neural, and muscular. I said, that's a good start. I'll take that. And once again, I want to change my middle name to endogenous. Steve Endogenous Perry. Sounds good. I mean, we don't need man-made substances to cure aging. It's all in us. Parabiosis proves this. Anyway, GDF11 is endogenous, which inherently makes it safer than any man-made substance. The body knows what it is. It knows how to deal with it. You're not going to have an immune reaction or anything like that to GDF11. I would much rather be the first guy to take GDF11 than the first person that took Lipitor or Fosamax or any other man-made drug. Okay, so now I'm not sounding quite as crazy, hopefully. Anyway, this is something I've been working with this for almost 5 years. This is something that blows me away to this very day. The molecular structure of GDF11 is conserved across all vertebrate species. That means, cat GDF11, rat GDF11, wombat GDF11, whatever your favorite vertebrate is. It's exactly the same molecular structure. I don't know if there's any molecular biologists in the audience, but no one has ever challenged me on this. There is no other peptide like that. Like, I have a lot of cats, so I know, cat diabetes. If you want to, if a cat has diabetes, you want to give them cat insulin. Human insulin will work, and it'll work pretty well, but cat insulin works better. So the base pairs are a little bit different for insulin, growth hormone, all the main peptides. But this one is totally conserved, exactly the same structure. In fact, when you buy GDF11, I still laugh. It says at the top, human/rat/mouse GDF11. And I was like, always knew I had a lot in common with a rat. And actually, that's part of our problem as humans. We think we're so superior to we're really, it's all the same design. you drill down into it, especially on this level. Another thing that I looked at was organs transplanted from older to younger people. Um, you would think if GDF11 was toxic, a young person would have high GDF11 levels, and you take an 80-year-old kidney and put it into a 20-year-old, it would shrivel up, die. That's not the case. It actually thrives. And then, just a little philosophizing here. Letting aging take its course is risky as hell, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I wake up every morning. It's on my site. You could just Google it. Social Security Administration Actuarial Life Table. It'll tell you how old are you, and they'll tell you when basically your expiration date. And believe me, these guys, they got a lot more data than I do. They got 200 million people in there. They're pretty accurate. I hate to say it. So for me, at almost 61, my expiration date is about 87, according to this table. But okay, maybe that's first of all, it's not nearly enough time for me. But the other thing I worry about is I'm a very active guy. I like to bike, and I hike and ski, and I don't want to spend the last 10 years of my life giving those things up. And actually, here I sit at age 61. Everything I can do, everything I did at age 30, I can still do now. In some cases, better. So let's keep it that way. That's the real goal here. Anyway, staying awake. Okay, full disclosure. GDF11 is very, very powerful stuff. Don't screw around with it. Fortunately for me, it's not like insulin or thyroid. You should read the history of insulin. Those guys, back in 1918, they extracted it from dogs, and a lot of the early patients didn't do so well. So, fortunately, GDF11 is pretty forgiving. You could take massive overdoses of it. These are the things that'll happen to you. You'll get shortness of breath, which is not pleasant. GERD, which is also not pleasant. None of these things are pleasant. Skin inflammation. Basically, now we've got the dosing protocols down so well that this stuff is pretty rare. Basically, the only thing we see now is insomnia. Even you figure I would know better than anyone, sometimes take too much. I usually get up around 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm a software guy. I don't like morning. Skip as many mornings as I can, but it's pretty funny. But I take too much GDF11. I'll wake up at 5 in the morning, and there's like no way you can go to sleep. And I'll walk outside my apartment and see the sun at a different angle, and see people walking around, and say, "Wow, this is a whole different world." But man, I'd rather go back to sleep. So anyway, so staying awake. Okay, average dose of GDF11. This took a long time to figure out. A lot of pioneers came before you and suffered a bit, and a lot of data crunching, a lot of numbers, a lot of biomarkers. I think we got it down pretty well. Above age 50, average dose is 500 picograms a day. So for those of you who don't remember high school chemistry, a picogram is a trillionth of a gram. Okay, and if you just to put this in perspective, the Empire State Building weighs 360,000 tons. If you were to pull 1/500th of 500 trillionths of the Empire State Building weight, you'd pull out 2 light bulbs. Okay, and so this is another fascinating thing about GDF11. I mean, basically, this correlates to the fact that there's hardly any stem cells in the body. I mean, we know there's 20,000 hematopoietic cells. There's probably 25,000 mesenchymal cells. I've never got a straight answer, even from the top experts of the world. I don't think anybody really knows, but I guarantee you the number of stem cells in the body is below 500,000. So it's very small. Anyway, over the years, we figured out a good dosing strategy. We call this downregulation and the maintenance dose. Basically, Amy Waiters, who I admire greatly, who basically figured out the tough part. She figured out that GDF11 was something we needed to look at. But said it's a reset thing, and this is true. Basically, people will dose 500 picograms a day for 30 to 45 days, and they're down regulated. Then it becomes a lot easier. You take a break, and then you go on the maintenance dose. So these are extremely tiny amounts. If you guys, anybody here is doing growth hormone or testosterone, these are like 1/100,000th of what you take growth hormone. Thing awake? Okay. So I worked really hard 5 years trying to come up with a dosing. I wanted a formula. I wanted to say, okay, you weigh this much, you're this old. This is the dose you should take. But I figured out that at least for now, maybe if we could measure GDF11 levels, things will change. But at least for now, there's no universal dosing formula. This is really interesting. It's definitely tied to age, no question about that. Exercise. Most people downregulate between 10,000 and 20,000 picograms. If they're athletes and they exercise, they're more closer to 10,000. And I'm sure nobody here smokes, but if you're a smoker, you're looking at 30, 40,000. And also, if you're smoker and a couch potato, you're looking at even. Then you need gallons of this stuff. But anyway, to avoid, here's what we do. To avoid side effects, we look at the daily trending of blood pressure, pulse, HRV, and reaction time. You don't need to go to medical school to figure this out. I mean, basically, if you're dosing something and you're trying to do anti-aging, you want your blood pressure to go down. I mean, that makes sense, right? You want reaction time to go down. You want your pulse to go down. Heart rate variability. I know a lot of people are up on that, but I can't really spend a lot of time on that now. But that's an amazing biomarker. That should go up. Trending goes the wrong direction. Blood pressure starts going up, HRV down, your reaction time's going up. Well, obviously, you're taking too much. GDF11 is very powerful to stressor on the body. And this is what I do all day long. I look at spreadsheets and I look at trending, and I make sure people are dosing properly. So, to all the, I got guys out there that don't listen to me. Like anything else, we have athletes that abuse it. I guarantee in 2028, this will be the biggest problem in the Olympics. Guaranteed. And they won't be able to do anything about it because it's so hard to detect. But dosing GDF11 without biomarker spreadsheet is like dosing insulin without a glucometer. And then, I'm sure none of you, well, hopefully not too many of you have to dose insulin, but if you do, I'm sure you take your glucose. If you take your glucose 5 times a day, you actually could do it, do very well. Anyway, wake up. It'd be funny if the batteries in this thing died right in the middle. I think it's oh, there it goes. It needs GDF11. Okay, this is a typical dose biomarker training spreadsheet, and when we have people join the cohort, we send you a box like this, a biomarker, hand grip, glucose, blood pressure, the HRV thing. Isn't this cute? You just put your finger in that and hook it up to your Bluetooth it to your phone. It figures out your heart rate variability. I backed this on Kickstarter. It's 2/3 of the hardware projects on Kickstarter never made it, but this one did, thankfully, because we used to have to put on a chest strap. Anyway, it's a ton. The first 6 weeks of GDF11 are a ton of work, but it's well worth it. Obviously, you're reversing and greatly slowing aging. Okay, we use Google Sheets, by the way. I'm a big fan of that. It's the best free software on the planet. This stuff, this stuff can do moving averages, really sophisticated stuff. That's not going to get into that, but that's something we're doing now with moving averages to be even more focused on the biomarkers. But this is what we want to see. You see this guy, his blood pressure is trending down, so his dose is obviously pretty good. Now, I guarantee you, everybody, all of a sudden, starts to go the other way. That's when I send you an email and I say, hey, you're on hiatus for a couple of weeks, and then we're going to put you on the maintenance dose. Doug? Heart rate variability, great biomarker. once again, we live in great times. 10 years ago, you want to do heart rate variability, you'd have to go to your doctor's office, get an EKG, and then feed that into a fancy piece of software. It costs you a ton of money. Now, get this little guy. It costs $130, but the software is actually free on your phone. Anyway, heart rate variability should go up. It's totally correlated with cardiac fitness and age. You can see this guy's doing pretty well. Reaction time. You will never hear this in medicine, but every single person that's done GDF11, even the abusers, the reaction time goes down dramatically. It's guaranteed, guaranteed. And you can take it on. There's a test on your home computer. You can see this guy went down quite a bit. Reaction time is totally correlated with age. I don't care how many video games you play or ping pong or whatever your reaction thing is. It's very sad. It goes down, 1 to 2% a year. I've done so much work with reaction time. I'm thinking of writing to the DMV, the state of New York. It's like, forget these eye tests, man. You should be testing people for reaction time. So, because if it takes them 500 milliseconds to hit the brake, I'll be under your car by the time you figure out I'm even there. So reaction time is very. This thing, it's a great aging biomarker. I love biomarkers that drop or get worse with age. This is probably the most guaranteed one of all. And GDF11 improves this. The theory is there's more blood flow to the brain, and it improves endothelial repair, repairs your blood vessels, and GDF11 is too big to get into the brain. It can't cross the blood-brain barrier, but dramatically improves blood flow to the brain. So everyone's reaction time improves, everyone's processing speed improves, memory improves too. So memory, believe it or not, is not a good aging biomarker. I don't know if many people know that. I've seen guys that are 80 that can count cards in a casino that get thrown out. So it's something I can't do, not even close. So anyway, now this is what happens if you don't listen to reason and logic. This guy, you can see his blood pressure is going up. I mean, how can this be good, right? Anyway, side effects don't have to happen if you watch the training carefully, and especially if I'm watching it. Anyway, this guy didn't listen. He ended up with insomnia. I think he was up for a whole weekend, and now he listens. Okay, thing alive. Okay, so we'll start with some anecdotal feedback, and then we'll get into some hardcore numbers. Everybody on GDF11 sees increased stamina. This is my favorite, one of my favorite things. I'm not a fast hiker. I'm not a fast biker, but man, I could do a 100-mile bike ride out to Montauk. Anyway, it's all flat, but but still, that's a lot. But I've done a lot of the Appalachian Trail, and I'm still doing it. Did a good 5-day trip back in August. Climbing those escarpments, no problem. Anyway, improved skin elasticity. It's usually noticeable in the mirror. Greater mental clarity. This is from the improved reaction time, more eloquent. I think I've become a better writer on it, but those things are very hard to quantify. Anyway, gray hair reversal. This happens about half the time. About half the cohort sees it. It takes about a year before that happens. Improved sexual performance. Almost all the cohort is male. The GDF11 strong suit is endothelial repair. And keeps the capillaries and key places functioning. We like that. Okay. Anyway, better sleep, vivid dreams, circadian rhythms and force. You can't sleep in on this stuff. Greatly increased appetite. I'm actually one of the few people that have gained weight on GDF11. But I love food. I live in New York, and I love New York restaurants. And that's just if you're gonna live another 100 years, that's my thing. I want to be like Zagat. It's a great job. Those guys just reviewing restaurants. But anyway, most people do lose weight on it. I have not, because I'm always hungry. Somebody please get me a beef chimichanga with guacamole, and sour cream. Because that stuff downstairs looking too healthy for me. Anyway, so improved sense of smell. Now this may not sound like a big deal, but it's actually a really big deal. People that have dementia and Alzheimer's cannot smell. So it's olfaction is highly correlated with neurogenesis and cognition. So people on GDF11, I had to redo my whole life. As I said, I have cats. I had to rip out the carpet because the place didn't smell well. I had to put together a litter box so that it exhausted to the outside. And that still doesn't smell great on a July day, but usually I can deal with it. But it's very interesting. Now, this last one, this sounds completely ridiculous, but I've heard it so many times that I put it in there. People on GDF11, they have more order, they're cleaner, anti-hoarding behavior. I've probably thrown out half my personal possessions. I can't take clutter. Matter of fact, yeah. Just line these three things up. Okay, it looks a lot better. So, yeah, most people end up throwing out a lot of stuff. And there's actually, believe it or not, there are a lot of papers on hoarding behavior. It totally goes up with age. And the papers say it has to do with a couple things, less cognition, and also the fact that as you get older, it's just too hard to clean up. That's a gross oversimplification. But anyway, people on GDF11, most of them have minimalist apartments. Okay, so we're done with the anecdotals. They're cool, but I'm a numbers guy. I'm a software guy. So I always say, forget show me the money. Our favorite the Church of Perpetual Life phrase needs to be show me the biomarkers. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go through some hardcore biomarkers. No more hand waving. The last 10 minutes were hand waving, which is fine. But now we get into the real meat. The thing will go. Okay, this is a good biomarker. You can't do this at home. You have to go to the doctor's office. This is your carotid artery thickness and plaque. You can see, it's probably hard to see, but this guy had a lot of plaque. You can see on the left at the top, on the side, 4 months on GDF11, plaque completely gone. And his IMT thickness went from 0.851 to 0.502. It's a 41% reduction. That's pretty incredible. Just so you know, you don't need GDF11 to do this. You can do it with diet and exercise, but it comes with a great cost. You got to go on the Mediterranean diet, which I don't think I'm going to be doing anytime soon. But if you really work it, you go on the Mediterranean diet and do all the stuff Bill Faloon will tell you to eat. You could usually bring that down about 5% on average. But this is something I'm pretty proud of because this obviously is a big problem in the aging population. Doug. Okay, this is another guaranteed biomarker. Everyone's hearing improves. We now have a Bimini hearing test that you take with your phone. Basically, mechanism of action here is moving progenitor cells in the auditory epithelium into an active state. The senses all evolved from one thing. I'm not sure which one was first, but they're all the same. Eyesight, smell, and hearing, and they all improve on GDF11. We've actually been able to reverse macular degeneration on GDF11, which is pretty impressive. But hearing is another thing like reaction time. Everybody's hearing improves, some more dramatically than others. Okay, so we have a lot of biomarker data. We have two classes of biomarkers. One are the home biomarkers. Actually, what I've learned the last few years is that these are probably just as important as the doctor's office biomarkers because you do them every day, and you go to the doctor's office and have a bad day and have issues, but it definitely is good to take these key biomarkers every day at home. And then there's the doctor's office biomarkers, which are require special equipment like sphygmophore, skin elasticity, spirometry, which is measuring your lung CIMT. By the way, just full disclosure here, I just do GDF11 advice. never bought it or given it to anyone. It's not FDA approved. That's one of the reasons that it probably isn't as big as it should be. But if you want it to be FDA approved, hope you could hold your breath for 10 years. But anyway, so we do not have double-blind, placebo-controlled biomarker data. I'll be the first guy to admit that. But we get so much data. I mean, when 100 people's reaction time goes down, what are the odds that it's my scintillating personality that's making that happen? About zero. So, I mean, I don't, I hear you with the double-blind placebo control. When you have so much data that all correlates, odds are something's going on. Okay. Come on, wake up. So blood pressure, great biomarker, simple. 28 participants that do it diligently enough to make this slideshow. Their average diastolic blood pressure reduced 7.2%. You always have one party pooper that went the wrong direction. Anyway, this suggests increased arterial elasticity, vascular repair due to GDF11, activating more endothelial stem cells. The stem cells that repair the linings of your arteries and veins. Resting pulse is a great biomarker. Average pulse down 7.7%. That may not sound like a lot, but it's going the right direction. 2 participants showed no pulse improvement. I will say these guys are like triathletes, and they have like a pulse of 50. So what are you going to do with that? But anyway, it does suggest GDF11 improves overall fitness and cardiac output. Heart rate variability. Well, you heard me talk about that plenty. Love this biomarker. It's amazing that we can do it now. It's correlated with increased fitness, health, and youthfulness. In fact, there was the what was it? The X Prize, $1 million for somebody who could get heart rate variability down to youthful levels. And I guess I don't want to give away the $1 million because I missed the deadline. It was like a July 1st deadline. I said I want to do GDF11, and they wouldn't respond. Probably knew that was going to cost them $1 million. But yeah, I guarantee if there's another X Prize on HRV, the GDF11 will take the prize. But one of you guys could do it. Because I'd say to win $1 million, you got to maybe run 3 miles a day and do some other stuff. But it could be done. Anyway, average HRV and RMSC. Oops. Go back one. There we go. Anyway, the root mean squared successive differences, that's the key biomarker of heart rate variability, increased 22%. One guy went the wrong direction. Anyway, results suggest GDF11 reversed cardiac age. Okay, now we're ready for the next slide. Are we on manual mode here? There we go. Oh, this is pretty cool. Now, here's something I realized before the researchers did. Believe it or not, I haven't met a biomarker that I don't like, and if I can get people to take their waking glucose, which is not easy. Most people don't want to prick their fingers. Anyway, if I get them to do it, I'll take the data. And 9 people that were willing to do that, and the average waking glucose decreased 9.1%. One guy went the wrong direction, must have started eating late night snacks. But anyway, so so I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. That blood sugar is coming down on GDF11. Then a big paper came out of China, which, by the way, is where most of the good GDF11 research is being done, not here. Drug companies are not interested in GDF11 here, because you know how much GDF11 costs a year? $10. So they're going to put a lot of money into it. But there are companies trying to come up with variants. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, the mechanism of action, according to this paper, is increased islet beta cell production, increases insulin production. Okay, this is one I just added recently. Hand grip, and people have been doing well with that, up 9.8% to 84 pounds. Mechanism of action here is probably increasing number of muscle stem cells. Okay. Now we'll do the fancy biomarkers. These are not cheap. A round of biomarkers, Raphael Medical, Physio, any of the Physio Age affiliates, will cost you about $1,500, but they're great to have. And I like to honor a rock star. This guy, look at this guy, cardio age 31 to 23, neuro age, which is basically based on reaction time, 36 to 29, skin elasticity down to 36 from 42, pulmonary age, didn't improve much there, immuno age, that's pretty key. So his physio age is 36. So but I have a couple guys are doing second round biomarkers there. I think are gonna knock this guy off his perch. Hope he isn't listening. Anyway, okay, this is important. Okay, you could be. I always like to look at Jack LaLanne. I mean, that guy did everything right. He worked out. On his 70th birthday, he towed 70 rowboats, did all kinds of crazy stuff. He juiced every morning. I mean, the guy did everything right. And he died at 95 of pneumonia. And so basically, if nothing else gets you, and I know you guys are into these long lifespans, right? So nothing else gets you. Immunosenescence will get you. They call always. I think this is a funny phrase, but they called pneumonia the old man's friend. That was coined. It was coined in the 1800s. They had different sense of humor back then. I don't see what's. I don't. How could pneumonia be called your friend? But anyway, you got to talk to a historian on that one. Anyway, the reason a lot of elderly people get pneumonia is their absolute naive T cells decline with age. Naive T cells are extremely important. These are the T cells that actually discover new pathogens and mount an immune response. And you run out of them, then you're hanging out with the old man's friend, guaranteed. So anyway, I'm happy to report. We need more data on this. This test is very expensive, $300 a pop. So it's hard to get people to do it. But this goes to the UCLA Immune Lab, Dave Geffen, UCLA Immune Lab, and you can see the most interesting one here is patient 15. He's 89. He had absolute naive count of 12. This is not good. You don't need to be a molecular biologist or immunologist to know that. Got him up to 21. You can see me there. Patient 0 went from 36 to 68. So anecdotally, most people on GDF11, you never. I can tell when someone's sick, by the way, when they have the flu, by looking at their HRV, and you rarely see people getting the flu on GDF11. But that's anecdotal, so I should probably throw that comment out. Anyway, augmentation pressure. This is a machine that costs about 25 grand. It's a very good biomarker. It combines the two facets of arterial aging, stiffening large arteries and constriction of the resistance arteries. Basically, the philosophy is, when you're 25, the heart beats, the systole, because the arteries are supple, there's hardly any wave that comes back. Get to be my age, it's like pushing blood into a concrete pipe, comes right back, hits you in the face. So that's what augmentation pressure is all about. You want it to go down, and most people do go down on it. One guy did go the wrong direction. This slide is dedicated to Bill Faloon, since he was kind enough to invite me down here. You here? Did he make it? Oh, cool. Well, I know you like C-Reactive Protein. So I went through the database and actually found, this was saying I have so much data that I don't even know what I have sometimes. I actually went through the database. I found 4 people that had done the C-reactive test. Actually, we're having more and more people do the life extension aging panel. But you can see the C-reactive protein is associated with inflammation. Above 3 milligrams per liter is associated with increased cardiac risk. You see everybody came down. Supposedly the reason this goes up is due to plaque. The immune system causes inflammation due to a low-level response due to plaque. So average CRP down 4.5%. We need more data. But next time you see me, I'll probably have 10 of these because I've been having everybody do the life extension panel. Skin elasticity, another fancy machine that basically goes like this. It measures how fast the skin retracts. Most people's skin elasticity improves, equates to 11-year reduction. A lot of these biomarkers, you'll see it's 5 to 10 years, 5 to 10 years reduction, and hopefully even keeping you there. This is really interesting, and this is probably going to cause a little controversy, but GDF11 usually lengthens telomeres. The mechanism of action is believed to be more active hematopoietic cells, which create your lymphocytes and granulocytes, which is what telomeres are measured from. So you can see we've got different tests here. That's why this slide looks pretty confusing. But you see telomeres down 70 to 60, 69 to 51, and most people improve, except for me. I'm the party pooper here. So that's over a 7-year period. No change is not bad. But I'm not a telomere guy. I think that, as I said, aging is due to the atrophy of your stem cell populations, which results in shorter telomeres. So shorter telomeres are a result of aging, not a cause of aging. And telomerase, just so you know, is upregulated in stem cells. They are immortal. Of course, they have issues because they work hard and they need repair by GDF11. But upregulating telomerase is not going to help your stem cell populations. I can't wait to hear all the emails come back from that comment. But we'll see. Okay, there's been a lot of controversy on GDF11. Every paper that says GDF11 declines with age is another one that says it increases with age. Actually, these papers that were negative are pretty old now at this point. I'll just tell you why. GDF11 is very hard to measure. It's found only in nano quantities. Age 40, you only have 2,000 millionths of a gram. The tests are easily confused by myostatin, which is basically the same, almost the same molecule as GDF11. 90% homologous, but the myostatin is 500 times in the blood. I've actually bought GDF11 ELISA kits. They're totally useless because the myostatin binds to the GDF11. It's just noise. You need very, very, very fancy equipment, X-ray crystallography, to measure GDF11. Also, GDF11 is stored mostly in your platelets, not in serum, so measuring serum is probably not a good idea. Now, this is really key. The dosing window of GDF11 is very tight. You know, all these papers, they just say, oh, yeah, got a bunch of mice, we're going to give them, 0.1 milligrams per kilogram, just some arbitrary dose. But you wouldn't do that with insulin. You wouldn't do that with growth hormone, and that's what a lot of these papers did. And the window of GDF11 dosing is very tight. You saw that guy's blood pressure went up, and you have to treat it just like any other peptide in the body. Too much is detrimental. Just so you know, I don't know why I'm mentioning this. Well, it's my cat. Just so you know, there was a paper where they gave some these mice 1 million times the dose that I gave them. Anybody want to guess what the mice died of? not a heart attack. They basically die of the excess GDF11 binds to the myostatin sites. Myostatin causes muscle wasting, so they died. They basically wasted away to nothing. So if you wanted to mimic, I don't know why you'd want to mimic this experiment. It would cost you about $100,000 a day, and it would take you about 2 years. But yeah, there's some really ridiculous papers out there. They could have given me the $500,000. I could have produced something a little more interesting. But it is sort of interesting to note what overdose of GDF11 does, and it causes muscle wasting. Just another reason you should be careful with it. Anyway, this is my cat, Bouncy. I love cats, and some of the saddest moments of my life are when they die at age 13 or 14. So he's 13, and as I said, cat GDF11 is exactly the same as human GDF11. So I did some calculations, read some allometric dosing papers, and decided 1/20th the dose was about right. So I gave him 83 picograms. And you know what? If you don't believe in GDF11, just take your old cat or dog and give it to them. You'll be blown away. I mean, you forget the biomarker. You just look at them and say, this guy could jump in a time machine or something. You know why? Because they, you know, like I said, it'll take you back 5 to 10 years. That's how many senescent stem cells you have. For a cat, age reversal of 5 to 10 years is huge. It's like, whoa! Like I thought, I don't know if this guy's my cat anymore. Anyway, you can see he look like an old man. He's got stuff around his eyes. He's got yellow fur, wrinkly, and on the right, you know, it looks like I took him to the dry cleaner. Look at that coat. Look at that coat. No, nothing around his eyes. He was named Bouncy because he used to bounce all over the place. And now he's living up to his name. Before he was pretty. His name should have been Slugly or something. Anyway, so as I said, it's because there's really no difference between us and a cat, and the reversal of the of 5 to 10 years is huge for that. Anyway, I've lathered too long here, and happy to take any questions, especially about dosing your
Ladies and
cats.
gentlemen, first a hand for Steve.
It's on your machine.
So questions for Steve. Are there any questions? Ben? Here, we're going to bring the microphone to you so that people online can hear.
Yeah, well, what do you say about the quality of the GDF11 being sold on Amazon or other places?
Well, I'm supposed to talk about this, but basically, when buying any peptide, you want to look at endotoxin levels, because all these things are made recombinantly by injecting E. coli, or injecting the DNA into E. coli, and they kill the E. coli and refine it, and that's how you make growth hormone or insulin. So you want to minimize endotoxin levels. The best lab that I've seen is R&D Systems. They're out of Boston, and they have GMP GDF11. Their endotoxin level is probably 1/10 of anyone else's. The other thing, though, when you get GDF11, you dilute it so much that the endotoxin levels aren't really that relevant. So,
There's a question from Don.
The GDF11, you said to take it like in the morning, you said, right? Do you take it with food or without food, or it doesn't matter?
I like to tell people right after you're done with your biomarkers, which I'm pretty strict about, then you take your GF11, and it's better than the morning coffee.
Okay. And how long
it'll get you going.
How long does it take to improve your sexual performance?
You tell me exactly what you're looking for. I would say you see a lot of dramatic changes within a month on GDF11. So you'll see the HRV, you see reaction time even within a week come down. You see the HRV improve. So I give it a month, but I don't know what we're dealing with here. So I could work this one a little bit, but
I have a question
we'll go easy.
From Ken.
Thanks for coming down, Steve, first. Secondly, the myostatin. So the myostatin gene prevents us from building muscle. So does this product reduce the amount of myostatin that we have in our body so we can produce more muscle when we work out?
It doesn't have any effect on myostatin. What it does is it repairs the mesenchymal and the satellite cells that build muscle. So it's a totally different mechanism, but it doesn't affect myostatin unless you take massive amounts of it. Then all bets are off. But you're not going to do that.
A question from Jerry.
I walked in a little bit late. Is GDF11 injected or is it taken orally?
It's injected. It's huge. It's 7 times the size of insulin, 2.5 times the size of growth hormone. So as I say to people, when they come up with an insulin pill, then we'll have a GDF11 pill. But no one's figured out how to do that yet.
Question from Anne Marie.
Hi. Is there a difference in the response between men and women? Because my husband has been doing it, and I did it for a little bit, and, just curious.
Well, you tell me.
Yes, absolutely. A huge difference.
Well, can you elaborate?
Things are good. What can I
Glad to hear that. That's the goal. Yeah, I mean, it's such a low level cytokine that unfortunately we have very few women in the cohort, so it really can't go on and on. But I really can't think of any differences. It's like does growth hormone affect women differently than men? I don't know the answer to that one either, but I would say that it doesn't.
Question from Robert.
Yes, with regard to the company in Boston, if you purchase that from them, do they provide it pre-mixed and ready to rock and roll?
Oh, no.
You have to do that all yourself?
I mean, this is all being broadcast, so we should discuss this later. But no, it comes in lyophilized powdered form, and one thing you'll with GDF11, you get into it, you get very, very good dilution. You need a master vial and a daughter vial and a granddaughter vial, and
Steve, we're actually we are recording, and this will be available online into perpetuity. So if there are things afterwards that you want to discuss personally with Steve, I would highly recommend it.
yes.
Yeah, the second question is, with regard to all the biomarkers that you keep track of, all the folks that you're monitoring, is that like private, what you're doing? In other words, can anyone join that group and have you monitor them as well and the biomarkers? And
Yeah, if you go on the site, there's a lot of biomarkers posted on the site. So it'll probably take you a day to go through them all. There's that much on there. But I've been lax lately. I probably got I could probably triple the amount of biomarkers that are up there. I got to get on that, but it's a lot of work. But yeah, if you join the cohort, you can get the spreadsheet, and we watch your biomarkers and make sure you dose properly, and that's
Steve,
how it works.
I have a question from George.
Yeah, Steve, if you're taking the injections and it enhances your biomarkers and you get all these improvements, but what happens when you stop? How long does your biomarkers stay at an enhanced level, and then when does it start to drop off, or does it?
That's a great question. That's my New Year's resolution, is to refine the maintenance dose. I have one guy, real busy guy, flies all over the world, says, I can't do all these biomarkers, blah, 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 whatever. He didn't do it for 9 months, and his biomarkers were still excellent. So, you can always check them and see if they're holding up, but the maintenance dose is very tiny, and I'm starting to think you probably get away with once a month or maybe once even a quarter. So, but once again, these hypotheses have to be tested out. And by the way, it's pretty hard to get people to stop doing GDF11. They're like, I feel great. I need to get my day going, and I feel great. And why are you telling me to stop? So you probably take it a little too much. But the maintenance dose is my next angle of attack. And right now I recommend 10 picograms every other day. But I have a feeling, my gut says you probably get away with doing it once a month. But eventually, I mean, obviously you got stem cells that are senescing and dying. I mean, if you went off it, for 5 years, then, all bets are off.
Question from Jeff.
Yes. Is the injection IV or IM, and is there a specific location you recommend?
It's the subcutaneous. It's like injecting a growth hormone, and I recommend wherever it's comfortable. I personally plenty of space here, so that's where I do it.
Question from Jay.
Yes. Have there been any determinations of contraindications, if you're taking other medications, or say diabetics or antihypertensive medications?
Yeah, we don't have that much data in that area. Obviously, it lowers blood sugar. I mean, I've seen people go off blood pressure meds on GDF11. So once again, you got to watch the biomarkers like a hawk, and make sure nothing gets out of whack. The biomarkers are what really save the day here. I can't emphasize that enough. You should never just get GDF11 injected and say I feel great. It'd be just like getting insulin and playing around with it. Just don't do that. So if you watch the biomarkers, a lot of people, I know the blood pressure medications, a lot of people have weaned themselves off BP medications.
Question from Peter.
One thing I noticed, you didn't do anything with cholesterol. What happened to people's cholesterol? That's one of the worst, Lipitor is one of the worst things to take.
I agree. Actually, that's sitting in the database. I got to admit, it's one thing I haven't really crunched. So give me your email. I'll get back to you on that one. But hopefully it's it's good. But yeah, I mean, I got so many biomarkers, it's hard to keep track of them all. But that is a good one to look at.
What is the cost to maintain per month?
Oh, I mean, you buy a microgram for $30. And that'll last you for years. So it's infinitesimal. But it's sort of misleading because the biomarkers and the equipment are expensive, and you do need to do those. So it's not it's not really $10 a year.
Is this effective on dementia?
Oh yeah, great paper. Google vascular dementia, GDF11, great paper. I think it's out of China also, but they've reversed dementia in mice that had strokes and vascular dementia. So definitely Google that. You'll see the paper will come right up, and it's amazing stuff.
Ernie.
I have two questions. Does GDF11 make unnecessary stem cell treatment?
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know much about these, these autologous stem cell treatments. I'll tell you, I mean, GDF11 is a hell of a lot easier than a stem cell treatment. I would give GDF11 a try first and see how you fare, and then if it doesn't work out, then you can pursue stem cell transplants or whatever.
The other question is, what is the cost of your program, and do you have to fly to New York to start it?
I'd like you to come to New York, because I have people come to New York, get them all trained up. We have a suggested donation of $7,500. That's negotiable. We're trying to pay down a lot of debt, and all this biomarker equipment costs tons of money. But this is not a good way to make money, I can tell you that.
Hello.
Hi.
It's my first time here. Me and Paul. We're from Port Charlotte. And it's so interesting to know about what you're talking about. What's the components of G11?
The components of it?
Yes. Is it growth hormone, vitamins? What's
it's its own. It's
Thank you.
It's a signaling molecule. I would say if you had what its closest cousin would maybe be a growth hormone, but it's its own entity. It's its own thing. Actually, if you guys really want to get into this, Alevion, which is trying to come up with a GDF11 variant. There's a great talk. I just watched it last night by Amy Wagers. And she talks about where GDF11 is made. And I didn't even know this, but most of it's made all over the body, but a lot of it's made in the spleen. But it is its own molecular structure. It has, there's nothing else like it in the body because it's focused on one thing, the stem cell repair.
Kathy?
I'd like to know what the source is for this.
Well, it's made recombinantly. Oh, it's made just like growth hormone or insulin. Okay, it's made basically almost all these peptides nowadays. They take the genetic sequence, the genetic sequence for GDF11 is on the long arm of chromosome 11. They pull that out. They inject it into E. coli. The E. coli makes the GDF11, and they purify it. Well, that's the hard part. That's why these guys. That's done by the companies like Genentech and heavy duty. That's heavy duty molecular biology, is extracting the DNA. But You could get DNA, your DNA from any cell in the body. Well, I mean, the GDF11 has been remade recombinantly for 5 or 6 years. So, but you could do the next one. You know, these new peptides that are coming out, yeah, they will need a human volunteer to extract the DNA from and put it in the E. coli and have the E. coli manufactured. But this is how Genentech made their name. They were the first ones to take the gene for growth hormone and produce that back in '81. So it's the same idea. That doesn't answer your question. What's that? We talk about it after, but yeah, I mean, it is all these peptides. If you Google recombinant peptide production, that'll put you to sleep. It's a long discussion, but it's amazing stuff. For the '80s, we couldn't do it.
Any other questions for Steve and GDF11? All right, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Perry.
Can we keep your slide presentation available for people? Is it all right with you or no?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we're going to, Steve has agreed, we're going to have his slide presentation from tonight available on our website in the course of the next few days. We'll get that up there. And this presentation given just now will be available immediately after our service tonight.
Really?
Okay,
That fast,
yes,
huh?
that quick.
Very impressive.
Yes. All right. Switch these. Now I'd like to invite you all to come up forward. Is there? Okay. Steve, come on up one more time. Steve, come on up one more time. We're going to get one photograph for you. Come on up on the stage. And those of you in the back, I want to invite you to come forward. This is good. In fact, everybody, this is a good time for everybody to stand and stretch and get some stretching going on. It's important not to just sit for a minute. So it's a good time to go ahead and stretch. And everybody in the back, I'm going to invite you forward. We have Bill Faloon speaking here next. So come on forward. That's it. Give yourself a stretch. It's good for you. All right. We're going to get a picture with Warren here. Okay. Stretch, Steve. It's good for you to stretch. All right. So again, those of you who are in the back seats, come forward. We've got a spot in here. You can fill in some space. Come on in. All right. Again, I want to remind you that next month, February the 28th, we have Brian Delaney speaking, and he'll be coming. He's got a great presentation to give. It now gives me great pleasure to... Okay, go ahead and get set. All right, so go ahead and get relaxed. Those of you, again, in the back, come on forward. Daniel, if you want to come up, you can. John, Diana, we've got spots up in front. If you'd like to be in front, you're welcome to. Okay, Richard, you're going to be filming. Are you ready? Okay. Okay. There you go. Bill has worked his entire life pioneering approaches for preventing and treating the diseases of aging. He is constantly on the cutting edge of medical technologies, and he's the founder here of the Church of Perpetual Life. Let's welcome, ladies and gentlemen, our founder, Mr. Bill Faloon. You want this one?
Good evening, group. I want to convey some very important, critical data to you. Just so you know, I started the first charity to support anti-aging and immortality research in January 1977, 42 years ago. And I've attended a number of presentations. What Steve Perry put on, in many respects, is one of the most impressive. But I want to caution everyone. I want to caution everyone that we all are seeking an optimal state of health. We want to create a healthy house. And in order to do that, you have to have a foundation. And unfortunately, a lot of people get all fired up about the ability of something like GDF11 to perform miracles. The clicker, by the way, not working. I'm hoping someone can get me another one because I want to move the slides forward. There we go. Okay, if we have to do it manually, we will. Anyway, a healthy house has to have a foundation. And what a lot of people have been doing, I'm going all the way back to 1977, they would say, I'm a vegetarian, or I exercise a lot, and therefore I don't have to worry about my blood pressure or my lipids and glucose, insulin, homocysteine, etc. They felt that what they were doing was sufficient. And what a number of people are doing right now, unfortunately, is they're engaging in some of the spectacular age reversal technologies, but they're forgetting about the foundation. And that's level one in this house of optimal health. It's a representative of what your body is seeking to do if you're seeking to live a real long time. So before you consider engaging in some of these aggressive rejuvenation technologies, and there's a number of them, please do whatever you can to get level one in order, so you have a foundation to benefit from the age reversal interventions. Because the harsh reality is that most of us here have at least one chronic condition. Many of us have several chronic medical conditions. And when we expect a single intervention to reverse that aging process and correct all those problems, it's sometimes expecting too much. And we've had some people over the decades. Remember, I go back professionally to 1977. We've had people who failed to correct the basics, and as a result, they had some serious issues. They wound up having strokes, heart attacks, developing malignancies that could have been prevented had they simply kept their house in order. So if that's something that people don't understand, I hope I can make it clear during this presentation. So what we're seeking to do is make the slide move forward, because it's not doing that. And if it doesn't if it doesn't start working again, we'll just do it manually. The great news is, since the last church service here in mid-December, there has been an avalanche of media attention related to biological age reversal. New Year's Eve, leading researcher at Harvard, David Sinclair, talked about new ways of boosting NAD+ in our cells, a critical coenzyme that declines with aging. Dr. Barzelli at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine continues to advocate for widespread metformin supplementation. The media is picking up on this in a very big way. And even some researchers who in the past were rather pessimistic about the potential of radical life extension occurring, he is coming around to the fact that at least we can improve our health span, meaning as we turn 70, 80, 90, we don't have to degenerate. There is technology out there right now that can keep us healthy as we age. And he's getting a lot of publicity now because he's advocating people should do what we've been advocating for many decades: take care of yourself so that you can enjoy your older years. Now, Dr. Olshansky, he's not an immortalist, and that's fine. He, though, is disseminating very good information across a wide range of media sources. The prospect of rejuvenating ourselves with young plasma or exosomes from stem cells that continues to garner media attention. The idea of taking plasma from a healthy young teenager, putting it into an older person, it is being tested around the world, by the way. All kinds of different stem cell techniques being used to emulate those parabiosis studies. In the media, they continue to pick up on it. If you look at the dates of some of the slides I'm going to show you here, they reflect media articles, including this church, which is getting tremendous international attention. A couple months ago, a film crew from Germany was here. They represented a show called Galileo. It is purportedly the 60 Minutes of German-speaking Europe. And in December, they did a whole story about this church and what I and my wife are doing to slow down and reverse our aging process. It was rather positive. It revealed a number of different interventions that we are advocating to enable people to live longer, if not forever. And the media, they're really neat. They see other media sources talking about living longer, staying healthy longer, and potentially living forever, and they mimic it. And this is a large publication in Australia, and they ran a headline about the potential of human beings to live forever, or at least another 1,000 years. Now, we didn't used to get this kind of favorable publicity. Bear in mind, 42 years ago when I started this, people ridiculed it. The whole notion of reversing aging was considered impossible. And now we're seeing it happen right before our eyes. Just like you saw what Steve Perry put on there with those validated markers of aging going reverse. People are doing that right now, and you're learning about that tonight. And this particular article was very positive because it talked about a number of scientists who are telling the media people, yes, we are reversing aging in the laboratory models, and we believe that's also going to occur in people. So the media is picking up on the fact that perpetual life, immortality, is no longer science fiction. It's rapidly transforming into a technology that will be as ubiquitous as the iPhones that you carry in your pocket right now. And those only came around, by the way, at the beginning of this century. They're not that old. This was an article, by the way, that appeared in November, a very extensive interview, and we're going to make sure these PowerPoint slides are available to you. And if you want to spend some time reading the interview with me about what I'm doing and what I'm advocating people do to reverse aging, this article was very good. And that came about because of a Popular Science article that was, again, favorable. This article had scientists who are reversing aging in the animal model, and they believe it will work in people, and they called me the forever man because I was the one saying this age reversal technology is going to eventually lead to physical immortality in people. Now, the scientists weren't optimistic about immortality, but they were very positive about the fact that they are going to make older people grow biologically younger. And we got a really nice gift this month. Bear in mind, this is January 24th. This came out just a couple weeks ago in a prestigious medical journal. It is essentially a summary of everything you've learned in this church since year 2013. They wrapped up the parabiosis research, the senescent cell removal. They brought together all types of regenerative therapies, and they did a massive review. It's a very well-researched article. These are some of the quotes from this article, again, in a scientific publication that when it appears in a journal like this, people start paying attention, including medical people who may have been pessimistic until they read a conclusion that aging may be a reversible phenomenon, something that will be reversing our organs, our tissues, our cells in a way that will make us live much, much longer. And what happened in early January was the release of the first human clinical trial in which a senolytic drug combination was used to treat a lethal disease called pulmonary fibrosis. The average person survives about 4 years, and then they simply suffocate. They can no longer breathe because their lungs have accumulated so many senescent cells. They did a small human trial at the Mayo Clinic and some other universities, and they used the dasatinib and quercetin. What we've been advocating here for a long time to reverse aging, they used it to these people, and they got some benefits, and they didn't see side effects except for one case. And if someone's dying of pulmonary fibrosis, by the way, and they're given an experimental treatment, well, there's going to be some person who's going to have a side effect. So this is the first published study, published this January 2019 in The Lancet, prestigious medical publication. This is going to open the eyes of a lot of clinicians out there who are treating people who are suffocating to death, and they realize now that they can treat these people with dasatinib and quercetin and potentially save their lives. For some of the new people here, we've been talking about senolytics for a long time. These are compounds that selectively remove these damaged senile cells from our body so that we don't suffer the consequences of them, because when your body accumulates senescent cells, well, they create systemic inflammation, they emit protein-destroying enzymes, they're going to kill you, and they're going to make those remaining years miserable with all types of chronic conditions. In 2015, a study came out showing that senescent cells, when removed from older rodents, induce systemic rejuvenation. These findings were so exciting, it resulted in a tremendous amount of research. In JAMA, September 2018, just about 5 months ago, a study came out, or a review more than a study, of all the evidence indicating that using senolytic compounds to remove our senescent cells, something that Steve just told you GDF11 can potentially do, that is going to enable biological age reversal, and it's going to alleviate a number of our chronic conditions. Now, this is a stark example of some mice. One to the left of the screen there, that was a normal aged mouse. It's in terrible shape, normal aging. And then the mouse given the senolytic compound starting in midlife, wow, it's not aging. It is not aging the way the normal aged mouse is. And the mouse given, the group of mice giving the senolytic compounds, dasatinib, quercetin, they lived longer. Equivalent is, let's say, a person who's scheduled to die at 80, which is typically when healthy people even die nowadays. You could potentially live to be close to 100. Fantastic data. And people with chronic kidney failure, heart failure, well, the dasatinib, quercetin treated mice, those organ functions were improved. So we've got Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, a number of other billionaires putting big money into senolytic research, and they're seeing results. This is absolutely spectacular. The media picked up on it in July. Time Magazine, Los Angeles Times, talking about dasatinib, quercetin, enabling animals to live 36% longer. And what was interesting is they didn't have to start this when those animals were young. They took animals the equivalent of 75 to 90 years, human years, and they were able to enable them to survive 36% longer and reverse some of the physical decline. So we're seeing a consensus among scientists that senescent cells are toxic, they contribute to degenerative illnesses, and they kill us soon. Now here's a really interesting quote from JAMA, again 5 months ago. The experts say, don't do this yet. They say, well, we're making old animals young again, you shouldn't try it yourself. Now, we at this church, we don't agree with that, but neither do the experts, because they're a little hypocritical. When they see aging go in reverse in animals in their laboratory, a lot of them are doing the same thing themselves. Someone took my bottle of water, so if someone can get that, that would be nice, okay? Thank you, Tanya. Okay. Yes, a picture, much more important. I can dehydrate, it's okay. So we have in the Journal of the American Medical Association, very positive article on the senolytic effects that occur in animals, but the experts say, don't do this yourself. Well, guess what? While they were telling you not to do it, they were already engaged in a clinical study, that clinical study on patients with pulmonary fibrosis. They got the results, it was published, and the media picked up on it. January 8th, day after the story was published, the media was jumping over the fact that aging is a reversible phenomenon, and the scientists have, for the first time, published a clinical trial showing that dasatinib and quercetin are safe, and they use very high doses, by the way, in this study compared to what we do in treating osteoarthritis, and they got results. They got results, and they showed safety, and that means people who have access to these senolytic compounds can consider using them, though probably not in a dose used to treat these pulmonary fibrosis cases. But that was not the first human study. at RADFest in September, we announced findings, not published yet, they will be, not published, where we used a different dose of dasatinib, and we used only people who had severe bone-on-bone osteoarthritis. And what we were able to see is 90% of them having significant relief, improved joint function. It lasted about 6 months, and then the people wanted to redo the dasatinib and quercetin because the pain started to return, which makes sense because the senescent cell burden will continue to accumulate if you don't take care of mopping them up. And we did do baseline MRIs and follow-up, and we're just waiting now for the radiologist to give us their report. The people, by the way, engaged in these studies, all volunteers. No one's making any money at it. We're simply trying to prove a concept, and if that concept works, we can disseminate that information so you can take advantage of it, just like I've taken advantage of it. I've undergone the dasatinib quercetin protocol. I can't say it did anything for me because I don't have osteoarthritis or pulmonary fibrosis, so I don't know if it worked, but I've got evidence that my aging process is going in reverse, but I'm doing 5 to 10 different interventions. Can't tell you which one is working right now. This is the senolytic dosing protocol we suggest. It's based on your weight. Dasatinib can be a toxic drug, but at the low doses we're suggesting, you're probably unlikely to see the toxicity, but we still suggest you base it on your weight. Now, the Mayo Clinic study, they were just giving the same dose of dasatinib to all of the pulmonary fibrosis cases and a lower dose of quercetin. In our osteoarthritis study, we used a lot more quercetin and less dasatinib in total. And we got very good results with the osteoarthritis, and probably the realistic dose is somewhere in between. And the more research we do, the more information we'll be able to disclose. Now, the big challenge is the cost of dasatinib. It's a cancer drug, meaning the drug company charges a fortune for it. Regrettable. We continue to seek out lower cost sources from other countries. We're doing assays to see what products have the dasatinib in there, and so far they all have. It's such a cheap chemical to put into a drug, kind of ridiculous to sell something that's not real. The oncologist would pick it up real fast if it were leukemia patients buying it, and certainly we pick it up real fast if it wasn't working in osteoarthritis patients. So we continue to look for compounding pharmacies in the United States who will produce this for us, because we think the cost can be under $200 for the dasatinib, and of course it's very low priced. So we're continuing to seek lower cost alternatives and also build a network of doctors who will prescribe dasatinib, quercetin, and other interventions aimed at reversing the aging process. And the last piece of news, I keep putting these slide presentations together and more information keeps coming out. But Unity Pharmaceuticals, Biotechnology, they are a group founded by Jeff Bezos and others. They put $300 million into this company, and they announced findings from a patented drug study. It's a senolytic drug on osteoarthritis patients. They used a low dose, and that low dose was safe. They needed to do that first to move on to Plan B, which is a higher dose, to see if that dose is safe and also effective. So just 2 days ago, it was released from Unity, the results of their phase 1 study. So a lot of people are interested in identifying compounds to eliminate senescent cells. If this drug gets approved, it's probably going to be expensive. But the good news may be health insurance companies will see people taking this don't need much of anything else. So they may give it to you. They may pay for it themselves. That would be tremendous news. But the fundamental message that I want to deliver at this talk is that there are a lot of potential age reversal interventions out there. Stem cells, GDF11. But you wouldn't take your GDF11 and put it in a pot of boiling water. You wouldn't want to do that. And yet our aged bodies, with all of the pro-inflammatory factors, the protein-degrading enzymes, all of the problems our aged bodies face, it's better to optimize our health today and then engage in the age reversal intervention. We're seeking the optimal house of health. We want our bodies to be in optimal condition before engaging in something that's experimental. And the good news is, well, lowering blood pressure, lowering LDL, controlling glucose, that can be done already. That doesn't require anything new. In fact, many of these technologies are almost 100 years old. I ask people not to forget about level 1 as they're contemplating engaging in level 2. Because with some of these interventions, if you've got very high blood pressure, very high glucose, LDL, homocysteine, you could wind up having a heart attack or stroke before you derive the benefits of the age reversal drug, nutrient, hormone, whatever you're going to be doing. So again, level 1 is your foundation. Level 2 are the many experimental therapies. And I'm going to go through the next bunch of slides pretty quick because, frankly, there's just so much good information to disseminate. I want to make sure we have time to interact. This study came out about 6 months ago, and they looked at mitochondrial DNA. This is not the DNA in your cell nucleus. This is mitochondrial DNA, and they bred a strain of mice to be able to turn off mitochondrial DNA. And what happens is, on the left, young mouse, a couple months later, it grows old real fast. And then they restore mitochondrial DNA function. The mouse grows young again. This is spectacular, absolutely spectacular. This is another picture of naturally aged mice at the bottom, and at the top are the mice whose DNA in the mitochondria was turned off. And those mice aged very quickly. And it's another picture of what happens when you deplete mitochondrial DNA. Mice shrivel, they just grow old very, very fast, but it's reversible by turning back on the mitochondrial DNA. Again, we don't want to look like this. We want to look like young, healthy mice. And what gives this study so much credence is the fact that we can now study the effects of a wide range of mitochondrial DNA enhancing agents and identify in this mouse model what is likely to work in people. So this one discovery could lead to the rapid advancement of our ability to regenerate mitochondrial DNA, our cells' energy powerhouses. But again, before we experiment with some of these therapies, please consider just optimizing level 1. Create a healthy foundation so you can build on that foundation and hopefully achieve the kind of longevity that's going to enable us to live another 30 years. We feel if we can make it to about 2030, CRISPR-9 gene editing technology will make us biologically immortal. Aging will no longer be a problem. But we need to get there, and these are some of the steps. We don't have GDF11 in there yet, but we may add that depending on the type of results we get with our analyses. But what's good about these steps is they're all available now. They are all approved drugs, and we're simply advocating they be used off-label. We make it to year 2030, aging stops. We simply have to prevent ourselves from dying from all kind of problems, and then we eventually merge into the cloud and achieve true immortality, whether it's biological or electronic, whatever you choose. And I always like to conclude with people who missed the longevity boat, people with a lot of money, sometimes a lot of fame, and yet they're dead. They're dead. And for the most part, they didn't consider aging research that important. So people with a lot of money die at relatively young age, and the Texans, they had a decent season this year, but the problem is the owner didn't get to really enjoy that season because he died with a lot of money. Some people might say, well, that's a decent age to live to, but I don't think anyone in this church does, and was founder of Southwest Airlines. I mean, he was a real innovator, did a lot of good work, but he's dead. Lots of money that his relatives can enjoy, but he can't. And we try to advocate when we run into wealthy people, if you're making charitable contributions, please put at least some of that money into aging research, because if nothing else kills you, that's going to do it. That's going to do it. And I'm concluding with a slide that I've shown before, but from the very beginning of any type of recorded history, we've seen this 300% increase in human longevity. But what's interesting is 50% of that 300% increase, that's occurred over the last 175 years. Just imagine what's going to happen over the next 10 to 20. with the rate of accelerated returns that we're seeing in the biomedical sciences. So I'm going to thank this group for showing up. Steve Perry's presentation, spectacular. We have had him present on different webinars at RADFest. He's been presenting every single year. That technology is so incredible that we can't wait to have people in this group get on it and report back what's happening. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
First question, John.
Yeah, Bill, last month, I believe it was, you mentioned that they were looking at rapamycin dosage-wise to see what was an optimal dose. And the 5 milligrams, I think it was standardly recommended. They didn't quite have the results they were looking for.
That's a preliminary report from one of the doctors involved in the clinical study. He feels that he may need to up the dose to 10 to 15 milligrams or higher. However, the people who enrolled in the rapamycin clinical trial in Southern California, most of them were very obese. They were looking at rapamycin as a way to lose weight. And it kind of helps to validate what I said about getting your house in order from the standpoint of level 1. If you think one intervention is going to cure all your problems, you're probably going to fail. And if those people who entered the rapamycin trial had been healthier to begin with, they may have seen better results. So the next clinical trial with rapamycin, we may exclude obese people and see how well it works in normal weight people. And it could be a whole different situation.
Ernie.
Yeah, two questions. On the using the D and Q, as I call it, shorthand, for osteoarthritis, are you suggesting a different dosage than the protocol?
No, not at all. The protocol is, we have that slide up there, is based on body weight, I believe 2.5 milligrams per kilogram of body weight of the dasatinib, and then an escalating dose of quercetin based on your body weight. What they did with that pulmonary fibrosis trial, and bear in mind, these scientists don't have unlimited money. They recruited 14 patients, and they gave them a high dose over a short time period. And that they at least proved that it's safe, and they got some results from it. So they now need to move on to other studies. But our protocol right now worked, and we're sticking with that protocol.
Okay. And on the NAD+, is there any change as far as getting a blood test for that?
We're coming closer. Some people indicated they've got an NAD plus blood test, and we just need to validate that. But I received an email literally yesterday from somebody who says they have it, and these people are credible, by the way. But before we tell people go out and do this, we want to validate it against what we know works. So that's coming soon.
Question from Jerry.
I take the NAD plus, and I was wondering, is it injectable also? And is one more effective than another?
Yeah, let me explain about boosting your NAD cellular levels. As we grow older, they plummet. We know that. When you're 50 years of age, you've got about 60% of the NAD you did when you were 20. When you're 80, it may only be 1 to 8%. And 80 is when people typically die. If you take an NAD oral precursor called nicotinamide riboside, that'll boost your levels 40 to 90%. And that may sound impressive. It is if you're, let's say, 40 or 50. But if you're 80 and you're down to, let's say, 2% NAD+, a 90% increase doesn't get you to where you need to be. So people are using patches, they're using intramuscular injections and infusions if they're older to boost their NAD and then maintain it with the oral precursor nicotinamide riboside.
Any other questions for Bill? Yes, John.
Late 20s, early 30s, etc. Still drive me as crazy now as much as it did when they were younger. But anyway, they're anything but disinterested in this whole life extension movement. I was wondering, they were wondering what an appropriate age would be to initiate things like senolytics, metformin, because they're ready to jump on the bandwagon. And I'm not here to discourage them, but I'm wondering what your thoughts on are. I mean, would it make sense for a person that's in their early 30s to start initiating any of these protocols?
They could probably take let's say 250 milligrams of nicotinamide riboside 3 times a week, and then maybe in a couple years, 5 times a week. They don't need anywhere near what we do. I know a lot of people young who take a lot of coenzyme Q10, and I tell them not to. I said, you got plenty of it being manufactured in your body, so you don't need more. And a younger person has enough NAD, though at the age of 32, it's starting to diminish. So they could use the oral precursor, not every day, just enough to keep it at that higher level. And with senolytics, probably they could benefit. But I would, again, wait a year or two because it's not urgent. And we're going to know a lot more about senolytics in 3 months, 2 years, than what we know right now. So a 32-year-old who's healthy, I would wait a couple more years before doing senolytics. And metformin, that's something I think they should consider starting. The metformin, a lot of safety data. Again, they may only need 250 milligrams a day, but at least turn up their AMPK. Don't let that midlife weight gain even occur, because around 32, 33, a lot of men start putting on the bellies. Metformin could keep that from happening, and they don't develop that deep visceral fat. So that would be my suggestion.
Question from John.
Hi. What protocols could be used or followed to reverse type 2 diabetes?
Probably everything that we've recommended. We do have a menu from previous services as to a systemic age reversal protocol. Metformin, rapamycin, certainly they want to boost their NAD. They want to get rid of senescent cells that create any type of problems. Weight loss, we all know, is important for most people. I would say everything that we recommend an older person do to reverse aging, and we know type 2 diabetes is a form of accelerated aging, they should consider doing themselves.
Bill, we all know that dasatinib has been very difficult to get, especially at these prices. So I tried this senolytic activator with the theoflavin. What's the correlation between the theoflavin and the dasatinib?
Okay, the theoflavins are a black tea extract, and they have several similar mechanisms of action to dasatinib. So they're going to give you some of the senolytic benefit. But what I'd like to recommend to people like you, I mean, this is a dedicated group of people who wants to get the maximum benefit. We've got solid data that dasatinib and quercetin work. And the problem is dasatinib is currently expensive. I can't wait till I can make an announcement to refer people to a source where they can buy it for maybe $200, and that's a 1-year supply. So in the meantime, people are using nutrients that have similar mechanisms as dasatinib. But the hardcore data is with dasatinib and quercetin, just like with metformin. The data is with the metformin. There's nutrients that boost AMPK. And for some people, they can't tolerate metformin. For about 20% of people, by the way, they have GI side effects from metformin. They just can't take it. Well, there are nutrients that can have similar properties. But if you have a choice, the drug is going to give you a more direct effect.
Robert.
Yeah, hi, Bill. Does the senolytics and the rapamycin, those protocols work on the same senescent cells, on the housekeeping, if you will?
No, differently. Rapamycin turns down mTOR, and in doing so, it enables the cell to undergo a process known as autophagy. That's removing the accumulated cellular waste that accrues inside aging cells. So it could very well prevent aging cells from turning senescent. And rapamycin has a number of other benefits, but it's not itself a senolytic agent. Whereas a senolytic is out there to selectively identify the markers on senescent cells and then kill those senescent cells. So they are different. They're both very important. If you don't clear out the accumulated cellular debris, you're going to develop so many senescent cells at some point you won't be able to remove them all. So they're each important, and they have different mechanisms.
Any other questions? One more, John. Here, let me give you the microphone for the people on the...
Yeah, as an FYI, my daughter was in Mumbai at a wedding about 3 weeks ago, and I had her check on dasatinib, and she says, yeah, the Indians have a generic for about $225.
Well,
and
maybe
are Indian generics, in your experience, to be trusted, Bill? I don't see why they're not.
So far, we haven't found any bad stuff. And again, the reason that there's no incentive to put bad dasatinib in a product is it just costs virtually nothing. You can buy a kilo of it in India for virtually nothing. So if you're going to make a generic drug, buy the real stuff and make sure the patient's getting the result with the right stuff, and then they keep buying from you. So if you've got a lead, even in a country like that, we should arrange to get some and analyze it, because that's the lowest price I've ever heard. And at that price, everyone can afford it. And that's our big challenge right now, is the high cost of dasatinib. So once we identify a country with low-cost medicine, we'll refer people to some pharmacy there to buy it. That's great news.
Thank you, John. Thank you for that information. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Faloon.
Thank you.
So once again, we're going to be here February the 28th, and I want to thank you all for being here. This evening, we do have a dinner available downstairs. Choice is going to be salmon or chicken, and we hope that you'll stand by and you'll be able to have a chance to talk with Steve Perry in person and Bill Faloon as well. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you again next month.